Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. My name's William, this is Assetto Corsa Competizione, and today I'm going to be driving the McLaren 720S GT3 around the Nurburgring. As always in these videos, I will have a hot lap for you, followed by the setup I put together, kind of talking over the setup, going over why I changed some of the things, why I'm running those settings, as well as giving you some adjustments to potentially make to the setup to make it a little bit more suitable to your driving style if you don't quite like the way I had it set up. So there'll be some good information in there for you. Um, as always, I just want to say thank you so much for all the support. It really is, it means a ton to me. I love hearing all the feedback, and I'm just glad that this is helpful to so many of you. I have a ton of fun driving these cars and making these setups, and it's just awesome that it is actually helpful to a lot of you, like I said. So I'm going to go ahead and stop blabbering. We'll get on into the hot lap, and then I'll be back to talk to you guys to kind of talk over the setup. So enjoy. Okay, that was a hot lap around the Nurburgring in the McLaren 720S GT3. You can see the time, a 154.375. Take a look at the timetable here if you're interested in the sector times. There they are. Been working on the setup for a couple days now, so I'll just tweaking the setup for a couple days now, really. So not a whole lot of laps on here, but you can see this is my fastest lap I've set. Just today decided after work I was going to get that low 54 I knew the car could do, but more importantly work on the drivability of it. So that's what I spent a lot of time doing, and as typically it goes for me, work on drivability, get the car a little bit more comfortable for myself, and the lap time just plops into my lap kind of like that. So definitely do think it's faster, capable of 53s, probably even in my hands. I did make a couple mistakes on this lap. The most notable one was in the Schumacher S. Just a little late on the turn-in, had to be kind of hesitant on the throttle through that section, but nevertheless, we can go ahead and get on into the setup. I did not start with the aggressive preset. I did drive it. Overall, the balance is pretty nice. There's definitely a couple things I would change right away, but I knew my spa setup felt very comfortable to me, and people, sometimes wonder, can you actually just take a setup from a completely different track and adapt it? And typically you can. So I started with my spa setup after giving the aggressive preset a couple laps try. I decided to go this way. So for the tires here, just looking for hot tire pressure on the front around 28 psi, about 27.5 psi on the rear. For the front, you do want to run like your average tire pressure across the lap, your average hot tire pressure under 28 psi. That way, whenever it peaks up, it hits about 28.1, somewhere around there, and then it'll kind of cool back down and settle back under 28. You don't need them at 28 the entire time. And same with the rear. If you're looking for like an average tire pressure across the entire lap, you're looking for 27.5. But if it peaks a little bit above that and drops a little bit below that, that's fine. You just want to really try and keep it in that range for the majority of the lap. Let's see, compared to my spa setup, I'm running less camber all the way around, mostly just because of the differences in the track. There's a lot of heavy braking zones on this track, not as many high speed, medium speed corners, that kind of thing, and a lot of slow speed traction events. So lowering the camber in the rear to kind of try and get a little bit more traction out of those slow speed acceleration zones, lowering the camber in the front to improve the braking performance in some of the really heavy braking zones where they kind of lead into a tighter corner. I will say the car was okay for sure on the cambers I had from my spa setup. In fact, it was actually faster through the second sector, but I was making it all up and then some in sector 1 and sector 2 with lower cambers. So I would recommend these settings. However, if you do want to maximize more of the high speed, medium speed corner areas around this track, you can increase the camber. Negative 4.4 degrees on the front is what I was running from the spa setup, and it was negative 3.9 degrees on the rear from the spa setup. I would actually decrease that a little bit if you're wanting to try the higher camber route. For here, I would go maybe like negative 3.7, somewhere around there. Just don't go so aggressive. It's not that big of a difference, but it does make a little bit of a difference. Also, increasing the toe on the rear. Just because the one thing that I was really fighting with this car was a little bit of stability from the rear of the car, especially in some of the acceleration zones, kind of the like slow to medium speed corners. The rear could kind of step away from me a little bit, so that's why the toe is so high on the rear. On the electronics, traction control on 2, ABS on 1, same as Spa. I've got the traction control on 2 because, like I said, I was struggling with the rear of the car. Just a little bit too much oversteer for me. I'm not the best at manipulating the throttle pedal finally, so I just kind of smash it. So using a little bit of traction control there, probably could even go a little bit higher just to make it really safe. Front brake pad compound and rear brake pad compound on 2. The suspension side of things, so the big difference here between the Spa setup is the bump stop rates. I lowered these all the way. It really improved the car through the last chicane and just kind of the bouncing that the car had. This track's pretty rough, especially whenever you wanna use all those curbs. It definitely did help me out quite a bit. See, the other big difference is the preload on the rear of the car. So I know that this high preload is probably one of the reasons I have the issues on throttle on corner exit with a little bit of sliding. It is very manageable, I will say. I don't want to make it sound like this car's just oversteering wildly. I do know that the preload is definitely part of that. However, this high preload really helped with stability on turn-in and also in the middle of the corner. Any lower and it kind of does a weird snap kind of in the middle of the corner where the preload is kind of like engaged and then disengages in the middle of the differential is engaged and then disengages like in the middle of the corner, and you get a weird snap from the rear of the car. At least that's what it feels like. So I increased it up to the point to where it just had a consistent feel pretty much for the most part through the corner. It does mean it oversteers a little bit more on throttle, but you've got tools to work around that for sure. These are the dampers for the car. Notably just softer fast bump pretty much all the way around. I kind of tweaked the bump and the rebound as well just to kind of just suit the balance of the track a little bit more. Feels pretty nice to me ultimately. The fast bump, I do know that is one of the absolutely terrible things on the aggressive preset, in my opinion. It is way too high. Car is extremely harsh over all the curbs. Do not like the way it feels. I know, this might be way too soft for somebody else, but at least in my opinion, this is this is definitely better, and this is pretty close to what I had at Spa, and I felt like those dampers were pretty solid. Since we didn't change the wheel rates or anything like that, should work pretty nicely. And then onto the aero side of things. So kept the front ride height at 58 millimeters. I did try it lower. I tried it 55 and then 52 millimeters. I didn't go quite all the way as low as possible. I didn't notice really too much of a speed gain in running it lower, but it did make the car just harder to drive in general. So I wound up bringing it back up to 58 millimeters. If it is still a little bit too hard to drive, you can try increasing it just a little bit more from the front of the car. It'll help give you a little bit more clearance and kind of settle the car down a little bit. It will tend to understeer a little bit more as you increase that front ride height though, so keep that in mind. We maxed the rear wing on the car. I did try 6, 7, and 8. I definitely think 8's the way to go. Just a lot more grip from the rear of the car, especially. And then the ride height. This is just the best balance overall for me, was on 77 millimeters. Any higher, and it was just a little. It lacked a little bit of drivability for me, but there's definitely more rotation in the car. So if you want more rotation, definitely go for that increase of rear ride height. And if this is rotating too much for you, like I said, I would probably start with the front, increase the front a little bit more to see if that kind of settles the car down. And if it doesn't settle the car down by increasing the front, then last resort, lower the rear a little bit. Before you do try to lower the rear, try and do them independently. So raise the front, see if that fixes it. If it doesn't, set the front back to 58 and then lower the rear and see if that fixes it for you. Like I said, if you're just wanting, it will induce more understeer for the car, but this might be a little too snappy for you, so that would be a reason to do that. The last thing to talk about here, excuse me, is the brake ducts. So I'm actually running the front a little bit more closed up than the rear. If you look at the tire temperatures on the car, the front is almost always a little bit colder than the rear, at least in all the running I've done. So I'm trying to run the front brake ducts a little bit more closed up to put a little bit more brake heat through the rim of the front, and from the rim, that heat will go into the tires and kind of warm them that way. And ultimately trying to keep them close to the same temperature so you can get a similar balance, a similar amount of grip from the front and rear. Really does help. And whenever you're driving a car where that balance or that tire temperature is quite large, it becomes quite noticeable in the balance of the car. So that's the reason it's set up that way, in case you're wondering. But anyways, guys, that is the setup. I hope you all enjoy. Give it a try. Let me know how you get on with it. As always, if you like this video, want to see more of them, give the video a like. It does help me out a ton. I know everybody says it, but it really does help me out a ton. If you want to see more, subscribe as well. Generic YouTube crap out of the way. I really do appreciate all the support, everyone. It means a ton to me. I can't really believe there's that many of you that watch this. I know to some it might not seem like a lot, but to me it's way more than I ever expected. So let's keep doing this, keep getting these setups out here, helping you guys out, hopefully making this more enjoyable for you to go around on track, drive these cars, try and get the most out of them, and actually have something you feel like you can drive comfortably. Obviously it's not going to work for everyone, but that's the goal here. So thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.